My name is Kate Shank, and I'm the Deputy Director of Legal Aid Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Legal Aid Chicago's second session of our series, Legal Aid Matters. Today, we're going to explore building legal services for homeless clients. So now, to get started, I'd like to welcome, thank, and turn it over to Faisal Delawala, who's a partner with Bryan Cave. And Bryan Cave is one of our amazing law firm sponsors and is an active partner in our work. Faisal?
Thanks, Kate. Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to take a minute with you all before we start formally, and I hand it over to Contessa. Just to talk about our partnership with Legal Aid Chicago. A couple years ago, our office was looking for a way to really increase our commitment to pro bono. And as we were thinking about that and talking to Legal Aid Chicago in connection with that, we created what we have called a fellowship program. And hosted that fellowship program in our Chicago office. That fellowship program is for students who have just graduated law school and are looking to do some measure of pro bono work right out of law school. What we do is we offer a paid position, a paid fellowship, whereby 50% of the work, roughly speaking, they do for Bryan Cave, Billable Matters, traditional law firm work. And 50% of the work is done via Legal Aid Chicago. As I said, we're now 2 years into that program. We just finished hiring our third fellow who will start this October. And I can say, as the recruiting partner who is in charge of hiring, that between the first year of hiring and our third year of hiring, we have seen an exponential increase in resumes and interest. And I think it's fair to say the people in our office and really in our firm are incredibly excited as to how the program has gone in our partnership with Legal Aid Chicago. So thank you all for giving me that minute to speak. And I want to turn it over to Contessa. Contessa, you may be on mute, I think.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Faisal. Welcome to the second webinar in the series of Legal Aid Matters, highlighting the work of Legal Aid Chicago's Public Benefits Practice Group. My name is Contessa Gibson Williams. I am a paralegal within the Public Benefits Practice Group here at Legal Aid Chicago, and I will be facilitating our discussion today about building legal services for homeless clients. Legal Aid Chicago has recently began refocusing service offerings to better meet the needs of people experiencing homelessness. And without question, being unhoused frequently impacts a wide variety of civil legal issues. We see this across many of our unsheltered clients that regularly ask Legal Aid Chicago for help. For instance, a homeless parent seeking child custody amid a divorce from an abusive spouse may be challenged to convince the court to award custody when they are not stably housed. Or a homeless person who has lost all of their possessions and identifying documents because they have nowhere safe to keep them. They may be challenged to qualify for public benefits when vital records like a birth certificate or a state ID are lost, misplaced, or even stolen while sleeping in encampments, on the street, on trains, or in other places that make them vulnerable to extreme weather and crime. And while real solutions to ending homelessness may look like sufficient quality affordable housing and easily accessible supportive services for those who need help getting and keeping a home, our work aims to reduce the likelihood that someone will become homeless and increase the chances that someone who is homeless can access and keep a home. Joining me today are Mark Rafman and Gwen Michon. Mark is a staff attorney in the Public Benefits Practice Group and staffs the Health Forward Salud Adelante Medical Legal Partnership with Cook County Health. And a focus of Mark's medical legal partnership work is the Trauma and Burn Unit at the John H. Stroger Hospital, where he serves many clients who are experiencing homelessness and acute medical crises. Gwen is a supervisory attorney in the Public Benefits Practice Group, where she manages the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Project. This project assists individuals, many of whom are homeless, to apply for benefits from the Department of Human Services, DHS, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, Medicaid, and cash assistance. Gwen was previously the Director of Development and Advocacy at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services in New Orleans, where she extensively focused on advocacy for people without stable housing. I should also mention our team member, Beth Warner, who is not presenting today as she is offsite doing the very work we are speaking about today. Beth's contributions will be a part of today's discussion. So our targeted goals for today are to share insights about the scope and impact of homelessness in Cook County. We'll discuss how Legal Aid Chicago services are responding to the civil needs of people experiencing homelessness within Cook County. And last, we'll share insights about how the state of Illinois' efforts that are underway to address and reduce homelessness that are active. Now, the most recently available data from 2019 estimates that there are just under 60,000 people in Chicago who are homeless or at imminent risk of homelessness. And of that, nearly 17,000 of those experiencing homelessness are families with children, and 14,000 of them are unaccompanied youth between the ages of 14 and 24. And while African Americans make up less than 30% of Chicago's population, almost 60% of those experiencing homelessness are African American. So with many issues related to poverty, there is a profound racial equity component to the issue of homelessness. The public health emergency associated with COVID-19 has had a particularly brutal impact on people without stable housing, as the number of available shelter beds significantly decreased to allow for social distancing, and the experience of sleeping in congregate living shelters put many homeless persons at higher risk of COVID. People who experience homelessness are more likely to get and transmit infections and illnesses like COVID-19 because of the lack of access to medical care and congregate living arrangements in shelters and encampments. People who experience homelessness are more likely to be victims of violent crime and have additional challenges interacting with law enforcement and accessing services for crime victims. And last, it's important to highlight that people who experience homelessness are more likely to have disabilities. And while some have pre-existing conditions that may have contributed to their homelessness, other homeless persons develop disabilities because of what they endure when they lose their housing and live in homelessness. Nearly 1 in every 4 people who are homeless have a disability. And on a day-to-day basis, Legal Aid Chicago provides services to people experiencing homelessness through protections and access to affordable housing, where we work to eliminate legal barriers to housing, protections for domestic violence survivors, and public benefits advocacy, where we aim to increase access to income and available supports. Today, we plan to focus on a few initiatives within Legal Aid Chicago's Public Benefits Practice Group that look to maximize access to public benefits, which often result in access to quality, affordable healthcare, improved food security, and basic income. All of these vital efforts aim to support transformative outcomes for the clients we serve. Areas that we'd like to highlight include the expansion of our SOAR services, targeted services available through our medical legal partnership with Cook County Health for homeless clients within the trauma and burn units at Stroger Hospital, and new outreach initiatives to meet homeless people where they are and connect them to public benefits. So we'll start with SOAR. And SOAR stands for SSI, which is the Supplemental Security Income, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, Outreach, Access, and Recovery. And the goal of SOAR is to help people who are homeless and at-risk homeless persons who are experiencing chronic health conditions that impact their ability to work. We aim to assist these clients in qualifying for disability benefits from the Social Security Administration. And this may happen through the Social Security Disability Insurance Benefits Program for people who do have a work history, who have paid into the Social Security system enough to be insured, or it may be through the Supplemental Security Income Program, which is intended to provide basic income to older adults or people with disabilities who do not have an extensive work history. Now in 2022, the maximum monthly SSI benefit is $841 per month, and the average monthly SSDI benefit is $1,258. And while the Social Security disability application approval rate for all of Illinois applicants is about 32%, Legal Aid Chicago's approval rate using the SOAR methodology is well over 40% for initial disability applications. Legal Aid Chicago has provided SOAR services for many years through our HIV legal project to people living with HIV/AIDS in the last few years. Legal Aid Chicago has expanded these SOAR services to veterans in work funded by the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs and Illinois Armed Forces Legal Aid Network, and to clients in our Cook County Health Medical Legal Partnership, which is funded by Cook County Health. In 2021, we expanded the service to Colbert William class members, and Colbert William refers to litigation against the Illinois Department of Human Services that alleged that DHS had failed to provide adequate services to people living in nursing homes who did not have a medical condition that required care in a skilled nursing facility that would allow those individuals to transition back into the community. Through a settlement decree, DHS agreed to provide a wide range of services to such nursing home residents, including accessing disability benefits to help pay for housing. And in 2021, Legal Aid Chicago entered into contracts with Age Options and Trilogy, who are working with DHS to deliver services to Colbert Williams class members. And this funding has allowed Legal Aid Chicago to add 3 dedicated SOAR advocates in 2021. And based on our success in the first year, our referring partner Trilogy will be funding additional SOAR advocates this year. The ultimate goal of the SOAR advocacy is to provide financial stability, supporting housing stability, and supportive health outcomes for homeless and at-risk homeless clients. And we also find that our SOAR advocacy greatly reduces the client's stress of applying for disability benefits. Now, as a SOAR advocate, I gather information from the client to complete a multitude of forms required in the Social Security disability application process. I request existing medical records to document the client's physical and mental impairments. I collaborate with medical providers to create updated medical evidence or evidence that is more aligned with Social Security's disability criteria. I prepare a medical summary report to translate the medical records into language that Social Security is looking for. And I also partner with the disability adjudicator to identify and collect any missing evidence and advocate for a prompt and accurate decision. Now, Legal Aid Chicago is uniquely positioned to provide effective SOAR services. So while most SOAR advocates are case managers that work for behavioral health and other healthcare providers who only help with initial applications, because Legal Aid Chicago is a law firm, the agency can represent SOAR claimants in Social Security administrative law judge hearings, or even in federal court if necessary. For instance, a 60-year-old client ended up in a nursing home in 2015 after injuries from a car accident that caused her to lose her job and then her housing. The client started a Social Security disability application with a private attorney who had not submitted any medical evidence concerning her claim. The client was referred to us by Age Options after the client was denied. Legal Aid Chicago represented the client in an administrative law judge hearing, and just 30 days later, the ALJ, the administrative law judge, issued a favorable decision. Now, 93% of SOAR applicants that Legal Aid Chicago represents in administrative law judge hearings are approved, and that compares to a 50% approval rate for all of Chicagoland ALJ decisions. Also, through our public benefits outreach and enrollment project, we were able to assist SOAR clients in applying for benefits from the Department of Human Services after they are approved for disability benefits, like AABD, which is the Aid for Age, Blind, Disabled Cash Assistance Program, which is a highly underutilized DHS benefit to supplement the income of SSI recipients. Finally, Legal Aid Chicago is able to advocate about systemic problems in the disability process and build on established relationships with other third-party advocates and the Social Security Administration. For instance, when communication with the Social Security Administration, which has always been a challenging thing, had reached a crisis point when their phone systems crashed nationwide earlier this year, Legal Aid Chicago successfully advocated for Social Security to designate Legal Aid Chicago and other SOAR advocates as trusted secure email partners, which now allows us to communicate directly via email with Social Security staff, as fax communication was unreliable and phone communication was completely impossible. And last, there are two recent examples where Legal Aid Chicago's SOAR efforts have transformed client outcomes. I'm just going to speak a little bit about that. So one young adult, age 20, was experiencing homelessness as a result of a parent's disapproval to their sexual orientation and gender identity. And the client was frequently kicked out of their apartment home. The client has debilitating physical and mental symptoms of HIV and depression, which made it impossible to sustain employment. And with effective SOAR advocacy here at Legal Aid Chicago, the client was recently approved for SSI benefits and is now receiving the maximum $841 a month and is due over $6,000 in back pay from Social Security. This income will support the client in obtaining stable housing so they will not have to rely on their unsupportive mother anymore. And this is a particularly noteworthy win because of the client's young age. Another client, age 59, had been working at a small corner store for about 6 years, and the owner of the store allowed the client to sleep in the basement when the weather was too cold to sleep in his van. And in exchange, the client had been working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, making $2 an hour in cash. And the store owner would allow the client to take frequent breaks because of the nature of their relationship. But the assigned SOAR advocate took time to visit the basement where the client had been sleeping to take pictures for the claim. The living conditions were covered with mold, dust, and debris, and the client approached Legal Aid Chicago with debilitating symptoms of HIV and chest pain that were exacerbated by the work and living situation. Through our advocacy, the client was recently approved for SSI benefits, which have allowed the client to obtain stable housing and eventually allowed the client the flexibility to quit the job at the corner store. So, and at this next screen for attendees looking to receive CLE credit, I just want to take a pause here to please make a note of the displayed code, which is QTG336. Again, that is QTG336. Now let me turn it over to Mark Raithman, who is going to describe another strategy that Legal Aid Chicago's Public Benefits Practice Group is using to address homelessness.
Thank you, Contessa. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Raithman. I'm a staff attorney at Legal Aid Chicago. First, I want to really underscore Contessa's talk about our SOAR work. She and the rest of our SOAR team are doing wonderful work, saving our clients months of waiting time to access basic income and avoiding lengthy appeals with the Social Security Administration. So bravo on that, and thank you for everything you guys are doing. I'm glad to be here today to speak with you all. I'm going to talk about Legal Aid Chicago's medical legal partnerships. The reason we're focusing on medical legal partnerships today is that we've found that these partnerships with health systems provide us the greater opportunity to meet and serve clients who are without shelter or at risk of homelessness. I'm going to start with a little bit of background on the general concept, and then I'll turn with how it intersects with the work we do with homeless folks. So the medical legal partnership deploys legal interventions as part of a medical patient's care to bring about better health outcomes. You'll see here on the slide, research shows that about 60% on estimate of a person's health is determined by social and structural factors, such as income and health insurance, housing and utilities, education and employment, legal status, and personal and family stability. In the field, we call these social and structural determinants of health. You may have heard that term before. Now, the map here shows how some of that manifests in the city of Chicago. The map is based on work that was done at NYU in the last few years, and it shows the life expectancy gaps by neighborhood that are attributable to these social and structural determinants of health. In particular, we call out one gap between residents of the neighborhood of Englewood and residents of Streeterville, which is a 30-year on average life expectancy gap that is the harsh manifestation of these determinants. Now, the benefit of medical legal partnerships as one solution is to extend the reach of a patient's care team where medical providers are seeing the results of these inequities, that we can now go beyond the hospital's walls. So for example, a doctor may diagnose respiratory issues in their patient, and that doctor may be aware that the landlord of the patient is not taking care of mold in the patient's home. So now we have a medical legal partnership attorney who is in a position to address that through a legal intervention. Now you'll see on this next map, the demand for medical legal partnerships is apparent by the fast and expansive growth of this model and of legal service delivery in partnership with health systems. In just the last few decades, medical legal partnerships have expanded to cover 49 states and deliver services in a variety of healthcare settings. Here at Legal Aid Chicago, we've had success with 2 fairly long-standing medical legal partnerships, and we'll be starting a new one this fall, and you'll see that on this slide right here. Our most senior is called the Health Justice Project, which is a collaboration started in 2015 with Loyola University Law School's Health Law Program and Erie Family Health Centers, which is a network of FQHCs, which are federally qualified health centers throughout Cook County. A few years later, 2017, we began the Health Forward Salud Adelante Medical Legal Partnership in partnership with Cook County Health and Stroger Hospital. That's the program I work on. The Stroger Hospital is the largest safety net hospital in Cook County, and Cook County Health as a system runs a Medicaid managed care organization and has significant inreach into the community. This September, we will be launching a new medical legal partnership that will focus on trauma and emergency care together with the trauma department at the University of Chicago's Medical Center. Through this partnership, we will apply legal service delivery to victims of gun violence and their families, including accessing a highly underutilized victims compensation program that the state of Illinois runs. So with all that said about medical legal partnerships, what about the connection to homelessness? The best data we have, and this is particular to Cook County Health, shows a significant crossover between that health system, their patient population, and people who are or have been homeless in Chicago. One data matching project between Chicago's Continuum of Care and Cook County Health found that 80% of people who were in the local homeless management information system were also Cook County Health patients. So the health system has an incentive to help solve this problem. Last September, in partnership with our provider partners and in an effort to connect with unsheltered clients receiving emergency care at Stroger, we began spending more time in-house at Stroger's Level 1 Trauma Center and their verified burn unit, working closely with each of the care teams. Now think back a few months. You may recall that our typically harsh Chicago weather coincided with the Omicron surge with COVID. As Contessa mentioned, the city shelters lowered their capacity to keep people distanced, and we saw admissions to the burn unit surge. There are more patients than we care to tell you who are living on the streets of Chicago, facing hospitalization and amputation from frostbite, and a few even having suffered burns from attempts to keep themselves warm. Our referrals, specifically from the burn unit, rose to make up a quarter of all legal service referrals we took from the health system during those months. The clients we came to know were facing many legal problems, some of which we could immediately act on. Here at Legal Aid Chicago and within the MLP, we do disability benefits and other public benefits appeals work at the administrative, state, and federal levels. We assist with hospital-based bedside legal consults, in some cases about domestic abuse situations, where we can safety plan in conjunction with the healthcare team while preparing clients to file orders of protection. We do bedside public benefits enrollments for other benefits like SNAP and cash. We can help people access birth certificates while they're still hospitalized through a law in Illinois that says if you lose all forms of ID, you may have no way to get your own birth certificate, but an attorney can get it for you. All that to say, there's a lot of value for attorneys in this space. And as we'll mention later, the medical legal partnership team is open and welcoming of volunteers if anyone is interested. Beyond one-on-one service provision, the medical legal partnership provides us an authority of experience through centering the stories of our clients on the complex and intersecting structural inequities that afflict our unsheltered neighbors. As an example, I'll tell a story of a client who prefers I not share his name, but who we have worked with in the past few months. He's not yet 40 years old, but being homeless this winter, he suffered frostbite and has lost fingers on both hands. For months, he was also without his link card, birth certificate, or any ID after someone stole his belongings and he felt he had nowhere to turn. While he was hospitalized at Stroger, we were able to work with him to reactivate his limited income by helping him replace his link card. We obtained a new birth certificate for him, and we've begun to advocate with the Social Security Administration that he should be entitled to immediate presumptive benefits because of his fingers while the agency makes a full decision on his disability. The service has also put us in a position not only to act on his legal matters, but also to hear his story, learn how he's having a very difficult time, unfortunately, finding appropriate and respectful care services that can help him remain in recovery from substance use. And this gives us a greater understanding of the challenges our clients face so we can do a better job advocating for them at the structural level. Our goal in sum has been to integrate legal services with Stroger's inpatient care teams and to act quickly to assist unsheltered clients to stabilize their situation while identifying avenues to address social and structural inequities more broadly. Let me now turn it over to Gwen Michon, who's going to speak to some of our broader advocacy efforts, as well as our outreach and enrollment programs. Gwen?
Great. Thank you, Mark. So I'm Gwen Michon. I'm the supervisory attorney for the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Project, which is a project that's funded in part by the City of Chicago's Department for Family Support Services and has existed within Legal Aid Chicago for over a decade. Before the pandemic, this project worked out of 6 offices run by the City of Chicago, providing all services in person to help low-income residents access benefits from the Illinois Department of Human Services. These benefits fall into 4 major categories, which you see on the slide. The first, DHS provides food assistance through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. These benefits allow low-income individuals and families to purchase unprepared foods, and they are vital for ensuring that people with low incomes receive a sufficient food to eat. The third category, I have my notes out of order, is the Medicaid programs. These help people access health care and certain supportive services. This program ensures low-income people can access doctors and prescription coverage. They can also give clients access to important supportive services that can help both obtain and keep housing, like case management and home health assistance. The Medicaid program includes a sub-program called the Medicare Savings Program. This program helps pay Medicare premiums for people who have Medicare. Generally, people receiving Medicare are those who are over 65 years old and those who receive Social Security disability benefits. In 2022, when someone receives these benefits through the Medicare Savings Program, it increases their net income by at least $171 per month and helps protect their access to Medicare coverage by ensuring that they don't fall behind on monthly premiums. The final 2 benefits are both cash assistance programs. One, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program provides extremely small cash grants for very low-income families with minor children. The maximum grant for a family of 4 is only $491 per month. The other cash assistance program is Aid for Aged, Blind, or Disabled. This program provides small cash grants to help typically people on SSI benefits pay for basic needs when their SSI income is insufficient to pay for them. As discussed earlier, the maximum someone can receive on SSI this year is only $841 a month. For the majority of SSI recipients, this is not enough income to pay for rent, food, clothing, and other necessities of life. So this program plays a vital role in ensuring that people with disabilities and older adults stay out of homelessness. The average assistance that someone receives through this program is around $126 a month, which this year would bring someone living on SSI's total income to about $967 a month. Together, these 4 benefits programs can play a key role in preventing homelessness. For example, some people receiving Medicaid use their benefits to access medical and psychological care that they need to treat chronic conditions that would otherwise prevent them from working. Because they can access the care they need, these individuals can continue working and maintain their housing. The programs also play a key role in helping people get out of homelessness. Access to medical care through the Medicaid program can be vital for surviving while living in homelessness, as people who are homeless as a whole are more likely than the general public to struggle with pre-existing or acquired medical or mental health conditions or be victims of violence. Cash and food assistance can help people who are homeless have enough food to eat and money to pay for things like over-the-counter medications and other personal necessities that they could not otherwise afford. In 2021, the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Team secured benefits valued at over $4 million for the clients we serve. However, when the pandemic started and all of our staff and many service providers started working remotely, and DHS benefits offices closed to the public, we started to get very worried that people who are homeless would be unable to access the benefits they need. By virtue of being homeless, we knew that nearly all of the homeless population did not have a reliable place to receive mail, and many also lacked reliable phone access. While this is always a challenge for people who are homeless, this barrier to accessing benefits was even worse during the pandemic. Many people who are homeless receive their mail at the DHS offices. So when the offices were closed because of the pandemic, there was no way for them to access notices related to their benefits. When DHS sends a notice to someone applying for or receiving benefits, they frequently tell the person that they only have 10 days to respond, or else their benefits will be denied or terminated. We feared that people would miss these notices, or even if they got them, would be unable to respond in time because they could not contact DHS or someone else who could help them by phone. So, in 2021, we began developing new models for providing services, adopting nationally recognized best practices in the provision of homeless legal services to bring the help that we can provide directly to the people we know need it the most, instead of requiring them to come to us. We've launched 3 new partnerships to help bring legal services to people who are homeless. The first project we launched is a collaboration with Haymarket Center. Haymarket Center is a nonprofit organization that serves people with substance abuse disorders through comprehensive programs. One of those programs is its O'Hare Homeless Outreach. Through this program, Haymarket staff provide comprehensive supportive services to people who are homeless who are seeking shelter at the O'Hare Airport complex. Through our partnership, when Haymarket's O'Hare outreach staff speak to a client who needs help with a DHS benefits issue, they can call a Legal Aid Chicago paralegal directly, any day of the week and any time of day, and sometimes even in the middle of the night. The paralegal provides immediate on-call legal assistance, helping the client submit a new application for DHS benefits immediately and in one phone call. Then we work the case collaboratively with the Haymarket staff. That helps us maintain communication with the client and helps ensure the client can timely respond to any requests that DHS sends. We've just celebrated the 6-month anniversary of this partnership and have already helped 38 vulnerable clients who otherwise would not have been able to access our services or DHS benefits on their own. Through assertive advocacy, to date, we have obtained over $100,000 in DHS benefits for our Haymarket clients through this partnership. The second partnership we launched is with the Night Ministry. It is a nonprofit organization providing housing, healthcare, and human connection to members of our community struggling with homelessness and poverty. The Night Ministry has several programs where staff go to the places where people who are homeless live, including encampments and CTA stations. We provided training to Night Ministry staff to help them identify when someone is eligible for or is eligible for more DHS benefits than they currently receive. Additionally, we hired a paralegal, Beth Warner, who was mentioned earlier, who specializes in providing services to people who are homeless. Beth rides along with the Night Ministry, accompanying staff to bring our legal services to some of the most vulnerable clients in our communities, and to ensure they have the benefits they need to survive now and eventually escape homelessness later. Most recently, we launched a partnership with the Chicago Public Library Harold Washington Branch CARES program. Through this program, Legal Aid Chicago staff help eligible clients on a walk-in basis for several hours every Wednesday. As the library is located near the largest emergency shelter in Chicago and is a safe haven for many who are homeless, this outreach provides people who are staying in the shelter and those who live on the streets and in encampments near downtown Chicago with a reliable and easily accessible place to get the in-person help they need to access DHS benefits. As noted earlier, the pandemic is having a particularly harsh impact on people experiencing homelessness. The City of Chicago recognized this and was concerned about high transmission rates for people who are homeless, especially for people who are elderly and who have pre-existing conditions that make them particularly vulnerable to COVID-19. It recognized that many people would be unsafe in existing shelters because of congregate sleeping and eating arrangements, which would foster transmission of the virus. In response, the city developed a new program where it temporarily housed people who were homeless at Hotel Julian in downtown Chicago for an extended time. Because these individuals were now in stable housing with on-site case management, this new shelter setting provided us a new way to help people who are very, very vulnerable. We set a goal to connect residents of Hotel Julian to DHS benefits before the project ended. We knew it would be easier to get them access to benefits they need to survive later while they were stably housed, and feared that when the program ended, many residents would return to the street, and it would be hard for us to find them again. So, on a very snowy day in early February 2022, our staff went to Hotel Julian to provide in-person legal services to any resident who needed help. One of those residents was a 60-year-old man who was blind, who I'll refer to today as Mr. A. Mr. A became homeless in late 2021. Because he had nowhere to receive mail, he didn't get the letter that DHS sent him in November of 2021 that told him that he needed to submit additional information to DHS to keep the food and cash assistance that he relied on to survive. When he didn't respond, DHS terminated his benefits. We worked with Mr. A to appeal the termination and represented him in his hearing to get his benefits reinstated back to the date of his termination. We are happy to report that while too many Hotel Julian residents returned to living in shelters and encampments after the program ended, Mr. A got into a permanent supportive housing program. The benefits we help Mr. A access will help ensure that he has enough income to pay rent and other things necessary for living independently. The problems that generally affect the public benefits system in the United States and in Illinois have a particularly disproportionate impact on people experiencing homelessness. When people are denied public benefits or their benefits are terminated, it is usually not because they are ineligible. Rather, it is because they could not navigate the complicated bureaucratic requirements of the programs. On his first day in office, President Biden issued an executive order requiring all federal agencies to identify the best methods to assess equity in program access, including through the Medicaid and SNAP programs. Pursuant to that order, the Office of Management and Budget issued a report called the Study to Identify Methods to Assess Equity report to the President. It found that policies in the programs targeted at the poor had higher administrative burdens than programs designed for the general public. Specifically, they found that programs designed for the poor were more complex, more rigid, and more opaque, and thus harder to navigate than programs designed for the public, the general public. It found that administrative burdens, such as the time spent completing and submitting applications, collecting and submitting documentation, participating in in-person and phone interviews, and the toll of paying attention to short deadlines led to disproportionate utilization of critical services and programs by the people and communities who need them most. The report suggested that mitigating administrative burdens would significantly enhance the ability of program administrators like the Illinois Department of Human Services, to advance equity and meet the needs of underserved communities. Consistent with that report, through our work, we've concluded that DHS can do a better job of making the benefits it administers accessible to underserved communities and to people who are homeless in particular. We are currently working to address these issues through conversations with leaders within DHS by representing clients who are homeless in administrative appeals. For example, we observed that DHS failed to assess AABD cash and Medicare Savings Program eligibility for many applicants because they specifically did not ask for those benefits. But we know that many people who qualify for and need these benefits do not apply for them simply because they don't know the programs exist. So in late 2020, Legal Aid Chicago obtained a court decision requiring DHS to evaluate eligibility for all DHS benefits for all clients, whether the applicant specifically requests them or not. Thus, when a person applies for more well-known programs like SNAP or Medicaid, DHS must also evaluate their eligibility for AABD cash and the Medicare Savings Program. In response to our advocacy, DHS is in the process of revising its application processing to increase the likelihood that applicants will be evaluated for all benefits. We expect these revisions will reduce the administrative burden on applicants and thus increase equity in benefits access. We are also prioritizing advocacy to increase access to DHS benefits specifically to meet the unique needs of people who are homeless. For example, when we observed that DHS was erroneously denying AABD cash to many of our homeless clients, because the AABD cash program is designed to help people who are elderly and those with severe disabilities have enough income to cover their basic needs. When evaluating someone's eligibility for the program, DHS considers the person's actual shelter and utility costs, along with considerations of costs for clothing and personal essentials like soap and toilet paper that they can't purchase with SNAP benefits. As people who are living on the street typically do not pay rent or utilities, DHS would conclude that even though someone is only receiving $841 a month in SSI, that they had a sufficient income to cover their needs and live independently. These decisions left people who are homeless and receiving SSI without AABD cash benefits, which meant they didn't have income for paying for housing, trapping them in homelessness. These decisions were also inconsistent with the law. Under state law, when evaluating for AABD cash eligibility, DHS must consider whether a person has access to and the ability to use a kitchen, because ensuring you have enough food to eat when you don't have access to a kitchen is much more costly. However, DHS consistently failed to make that consideration. And we're currently representing a number of clients in administrative appeals related to this issue. We are also working to improve equity and increase access for people who are homeless to Social Security benefits. The Social Security Administration has policies intended to accommodate the special needs of homeless applicants. Through our work in SOAR cases, we have observed that the Social Security Administration, in practice, does not apply these policies correctly. We are currently advocating with the Social Security Administration to ensure the policies are correctly applied. So far today, we've talked about Legal Aid Chicago's public benefits work for people who are homeless. However, we know that the causes and impacts of homelessness are complex and multidimensional. That is why Legal Aid Chicago is now working to organize our advocacy internally across the substantive practice groups to make sure that we can best address those complex needs. This year, we launched Legal Aid Chicago's Homeless Task Force. The task force has two primary goals. First, we are working to ensure that people who are homeless can access legal services they need to protect their rights and get supports they need to escape homelessness. Second, we will use an interdisciplinary approach to break down legal barriers that cause and keep people in homelessness. One of the first initiatives of the Legal Aid Chicago Homeless Services Task Force is to help the state of Illinois in its own efforts to end homelessness. The Illinois Department of Human Services Office to Prevent and End Homelessness is currently developing the Illinois State Plan to Prevent and End Homelessness. Earlier this year, the office distributed a draft of its plan for public comment. Legal Aid Chicago provided comments on the proposed plan and met with DHS staff who are leading the initiative to talk about how problems with administration of DHS public benefits programs limit access to equity, particularly for those experiencing homelessness. We will continue this dialogue with DHS to identify the specific policies and practices that act as a barrier to homeless people receiving desperately needed benefits and advocate to increase equity in the administration of these programs. We are excited to continue to move forward to build legal services that meet the unique and acute needs of people experiencing homelessness, and are grateful to you and all of the funders whose commitment to equity make this work possible.
Thank you so much, Contessa, Mark, and Gwen. So after that motivating presentation, we'd like to share a number of ways that you all can help. We can use your help as a volunteer or by joining our Ambassadors Board. Further, our first in-person luncheon in 2 years is coming up in less than a month. It's going to be on June 14th. And there's still time for firms and companies to sponsor this event or for you as individuals to attend. You can get tickets on our website. And any donation that you make, either through attending our luncheon or just straight donations, that will help to continue our work for equal justice and to ensure clients who need access to public benefits will receive the justice that they deserve and that they're entitled to receive. So this is the end of our planned content portion of today's presentation. But in a moment, we're going to start the Q&A portion. Before we do that, though, just a quick reminder, we would appreciate it if you could fill out a brief survey about the presentation. So to do that and to get CLE credit, if that's something you'd like, just click on the link in the chat and fill out the form. And then we also just want to invite you to join us next week for our session discussing the rights for LGBTQ students. So our panelists are going to remain on to answer your questions again. So please, if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And we do have some questions that have already come in. So I'd like to jump on over to those. I'd like to start out with a question about requirements for a person who's receiving $841 from SSI to get additional benefits from AABD. So I don't know, Gwen, if you'd be able to talk about what other requirements someone might need to meet in order to get additional AABD benefits. And if you could talk a little bit about what those benefits are too, that'd be great.
Yeah, so AABD is the DHS's program for the aged. It's for people who are over 65, or generally people who are on SSI or have some sort of disability that prevents them from working. There's a number of non-financial requirements to qualify for the AABD program. For example, you have to be an Illinois resident, and there's certain, the state has certain requirements for a citizenship or immigration status. And so it would take a long time to go through all of those. For the financial requirements, it's really particular to the person's situation. By state regulation, a person gets certain allowances based on what their actual expenses are for things like, so I mentioned shelter and utilities, but also if someone has a particular dietary need, or if they need to live in a first floor or an elevator accessible apartment because they can't navigate stairs independently. So it's a pretty complicated program. It takes into consideration a lot of those different factors. So.
Great, thanks, Gwen. And then I also just want to ask you, Gwen, since you talked about our program at O'Hare, is there a way for a paralegal or someone who does not have a law license to be involved in helping to serve and support clients through that program?
We currently don't have a volunteer component for that program. If anyone is interested in doing it, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. But our folks who are providing either on-site or remote enrollment work for people who are homeless, none of them are attorneys. They're all overseen by me or by another attorney. And we represent the clients when an appeal is necessary, but you do not need to be an attorney to help someone with a DHS benefits case.
Great, thank you. Contessa or Mark, I'm wondering if you could talk about if our services for homeless people are LGBTQ friendly.
Or Contessa, should I go ahead?
Oh yeah, feel free.
They are, and increasingly so. You know, we have new fellows on staff who are focused on projects in specific legal areas that serve individuals who are LGBTQ. The newest one in particular is focused on helping people get orders of protection and come out of abusive situations, and with services that are sensitive to the unique needs of people from the LGBTQ community. But more broadly, you know, all of our staff are trained in the delivery of services to LGBTQ populations and people generally in Chicago. So I would say yes.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I'm wondering also, Mark, you answered this a bit in the Q&A and in a typed portion, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how our social work team also works with our clients in terms of just the variety of other supportive services that team is able to provide.
Absolutely. We are blessed at Legal Aid Chicago to now have a team of 4 social workers to cover a range of cases that we take on, which allows, you know, as attorneys and paralegals to focus on the legal issue. And then the social work team can come in and help clients manage a range of, you know, social issues, basic application issues, and also behavioral and emotional issues that they may be, challenges that they may be confronting. And, you know, especially I can talk a little bit about how that works in disability benefits cases, where you're oftentimes having to try to prove what the person can't do. That can be very stigmatizing, that can be very harsh, and having a social worker work in tandem with you allows them to, you know, build a client up. They're trained in motivational interviewing and other techniques that some of you may be familiar with. So they are a huge asset to our work.
They absolutely are. Thank you, Mark. Gwen, could you talk about any legal services that are provided for undocumented homeless individuals? Are there any benefits that they may be eligible for? And if so, what's the best way for them to find out about those benefits?
Yeah, DHS has a number of programs that are that don't have any citizenship requirement, particularly in the health area. So DHS offers through the Moms and Babies program, there are some services to help moms and babies, and there's also benefits for there's health benefits for older adults that don't have any citizenship requirement. Unfortunately, there's some limitations on who we can serve, though, because we get funding through the Legal Service Corporation. There are some limitations there's limitations on who we can serve, and some of those limitations include things like about citizenship and immigration status. But you don't have to be a citizen or a legal permanent resident to access our services. There are a number of exceptions to those rules. We regularly represent clients who are preparing for submitting applications for U visas. We have actually a collaboration with our immigration unit here at Legal Aid Chicago, where when someone is in the process of applying for a U visa, we'll represent them in their DHS case and help them access a program. It's called VTTC, but it's basically a state lookalike to all the federal programs that I just discussed.
Thanks, Gwen. Contessa, you talked a little bit about at the outset about our incredible success rates that we have versus clients have to go it alone or have the private bar representing them. So I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit further the difference in the outcomes. You know, why are we having such tremendous success for our clients?
Sure. I think a lot of that, outside of just going through the step-by-step, filling out the paperwork, things of that nature, I think a lot of that speaks to just the functional capabilities of Legal Aid by us being a nonprofit law firm. Also, the on-purpose relationship that we have that continues to grow, that we have with Social Security, makes a huge difference. What we've also seen is just by Legal Aid's advocacy for the third-party applications, it seems like it really is kind of having like a bonus benefit effect to a lot of other agencies that may not necessarily be law firms assisting clients with this work. So I think a lot of it has to do with the on-purpose relationship building that our agency has done on a systemic level with Social Security that's really helping to make a difference. So if there's even just a little change or update to help applications get processed more effectively, get flagged, as soon as we know about it, we're integrating that into the process because of that direct communication. I can't say that all nonprofit agencies doing this work have that at their disposal.
Terrific. Thanks, Contessa. So we got a question about services for clients who live in the suburbs. So Mark, could you respond? Should we, are we welcoming referrals from clients who live in the suburbs, or do we only serve Chicago?
We serve the suburbs. I can put that simply. My project at Cook County Health, we have many, many patients who we serve who live across suburban Cook County, as do many of my colleagues. So that should not be an obstacle for the most part.
Great, thanks, Mark. Mark, could you also talk about our eviction ceiling or record ceiling for homeless folks who are trying to find housing?
Absolutely. We oftentimes we won't do that work directly, but there's some other wonderful nonprofits in the community who we have a close relationship with and will refer to. There were some clinics, I believe, this past month, and there may be another one in June, that if you feel free to email me if you have a particular person, I can direct you who are doing eviction ceiling work to try to make sure that anyone who's evicted, recently due to the pandemic or further in the past, have a barrier to finding new housing.
Terrific, thanks, Mark. And then Gwen, we got a question from another, at least former legal aid provider from Western Missouri, who mentioned disability benefits for public transportation. So could you talk about if any of those benefits exist here in Cook County or in Illinois?
I don't know exactly what he's talking about. Sometimes we'll help people access reduced CTA fare cards. And I know that there's a paratransit organization that is contracted out by the CTA, but I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that information. Let's see. So either Mark or Contessa, could you talk about how we accept referrals and what our sort of intake process is? How can, if other providers or other folks who know someone who could use our services, how can they best connect with us?
I'm sure maybe we can tag team this one. It may be a little different for Mark's area. For the SOAR work that we do, generally those application efforts are initiated through our referring partners, Age Options Trilogy, and we also do some work for veterans as well in that capacity. And so a lot of that looks like just kind of a direct connection. If they're clients of those partnering agencies, then it kind of fast tracks those applications. I'd say something similar for the veterans that we serve who qualify for the program offerings. And then I'll kick it over to Mark for the MLP.
Thank you, Contessa. Yeah, so for the MLP, we take referrals again directly from our partners at the health system. One thing I'll say across the way referrals come in at Legal Aid Chicago, and there are a number of doors, and one of the nice things about this organization is we have 5 practice groups that cover a wide range of legal service areas. And when we screen clients for intake, we're often looking at a variety of issues that someone may, use assistance with. So for example, I've gotten a number of cases where we were looking at eviction and able to screen and in many cases help an individual with an eviction, but it turns out they also were eligible for AABD cash and they didn't know it. So we can do an enrollment there, and other issues come up as we work with a person, you build trust and people reveal more of the challenges they're facing to you. And we are in a position to address many of those challenges. So that's a little bit about our intake process.
Terrific, thank you both. Contessa, you mentioned at the outset that we helped to facilitate easier email communication with Social Security. Could you talk about what impact that had on outcomes for our clients as a result?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just out the gate, it's been transformational. It had, you essentially, when you send an email, for the most part, you know that it's gotten there. There's specific language that we often cite in those communications so that the Social Security receiver on the other end knows that it's okay. It has really shrunk down the back and forth. So given the nature of that secure connection, we're actually able to share, personal identifying information through email because of the technology that's been set up. And that's really cut down time. Just as an example, historically, if we were to fax something, Social Security would essentially have a huge fax queue. And sometimes it would be a matter of them being a week, multiple weeks behind in terms of processing that fax. So a fax would go in a huge queue. Someone on the other end at the Social Security office, as an example, would have to go through those fax documents, organize the documents, tag them, and assign them to the client file. When we're talking email, it's one-to-one. I sent it to you, you got it, we're looking for a response. So it's been really transformational in terms of ensuring that Social Security gets the information we need, and it makes it incredibly easy to follow up on it after it's been submitted on behalf of the client.
Terrific. Thanks, Contessa. All right, I want to wrap this up by talking about answering some questions regarding support in our luncheon. So there's some questions in the chat about buying tickets to the luncheon, and we'll reach out separately to those who've asked those specific questions to get you some answers there. And then as far as getting a recording of this session, that will be available at the close of all of our sessions. So we have several more weeks to go. We invite all of you again to join us next week and in following weeks. Thank you again to our terrific presenters, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.